I shall pay my $500 fine for being late. Good morning, Minister Hill. Are you ready? Hi, good morning, and welcome to another in our series of post-cabinet press briefings. It's actually 8:05. We apologize for being 5 minutes late. But this morning we have a special presentation from two very important ministers. That's Senator the Honorable Albin Hill, who is Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, who has some very important updates to give, as well as Minister of Labor and Social Security, the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr. Also in our audience, we have the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, Mrs. Colette Roberts-Risden, and we also have the Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Mrs. Sansia Bennett-Templer. Members of the media, thank you for being in attendance. We also want to thank the Jamaica Information Service and the team from OPM for providing the support, as well as you, our listeners, for tuning in every Wednesday morning, 8 o'clock. We'll now go to the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator the Honorable Albin Hill. We'll make the first presentation, after which we'll have the Minister of Labor and Social Security, and then we will take questions from members of the media. Senator Hill.
Thank you very much, Minister Morgan, and of course I'm happy to be here with my colleague, Minister Pernell Charles Jr. I would say newly minted in his new ministry. Our two PSs are here, very happy to see them both this morning, and of course the press. I want to start off with something that I've been talking about for a long time, and it's exports. Last evening, I had the pleasure of hosting, under the auspices of JAMPRO and JBDC and JMEA, the 50 cohorts, 50 businesses in Export Max. Export Max was started, I think, in 2019 by JAMPRO, and they started with a small number, got up to 30 a year or so ago, and now the cohort that I hosted was 50. That's 50 small companies that have been able to become exporters. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to leave from St. Elizabeth or St. Mary, set up a business, get some money maybe from Exim or DBJ, maybe your auntie and uncle help you, you buy a ticket and go to a country you've never been to before to try and find markets to sell your products, sell them and come back with hard currency. I was just so amazed and pleased to be there last evening. But it wasn't only that. Those 50 cohorts, they never met each other, many of them. And they are now doing business among themselves. For instance, in 2021, they sold $13 million to the free trade arrangements at the airport. In 2022, that rose to $63 million. just right here, not even going anywhere, because they made contacts among themselves. Sort of reminded me about when I took the trade missions to Guyana and Barbados. Many of them had never met each other. So I saw a big investor, businessman from Montego Bay, talking to a contractor who he would never ever meet generally, but it's a class 1 contractor, and now they're doing business together. So the export part of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and I must add Jamaica's business ministry, is really working well, not just for the big man, as people tend to say, but really with Export Max and what we're doing at that level, we're not only helping business to start, but we're helping them to create jobs. Create jobs in places that normally you don't create jobs. But there's also more from the ministry. Last 2 weeks, I opened 2 BPO centers. One at 76 RHR, which is 76 Red Hills Road, owned by the Lees. They have seating there. They have a new BPO center going there for 1,800 seats. Now, when you say 1,800 seats, because they work on shift, it's more than 1,800 people they're employing, the BPO that's there. I opened one in Aragonabo, the old estate there, put together. It's a investment put together by Scott and Subrati, but it's owned. The operation of the business that I went to open is Sagility. Sagility used to be owned by Hinduja in India. They sold it for the health service part of Sagility for over about $1 billion to Bearings of England. And so Sagility, under that heading, is here in Jamaica, and I opened a business there for 1,200 seats, and I'm opening another one in another couple of days, well, couple of weeks, for about another 1,800, 200 seats. So jobs are being created. Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce are creating jobs. And one of the main things, I'll take other questions, but I want to tell you about something else. I want to tell you about the infrastructure, the quality infrastructure that we have been putting in at the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Now, I bet many of you have no idea what JANAC is. JANAC is Jamaica National Accreditation. And what does JANAC do? JANAC makes sure that we have the ability to accredit testing laboratories in Jamaica. But not just Jamaica. They offer this service to 10 other countries. Took them to Guyana, took them to Trinidad. They're all over the Caribbean making that service. So they're selling the service. We in the ministry don't have to give them any government money. They're making their own money. But more importantly, JANAC has 3 international bodies that give them the right to accredit. And the main one I want to talk to you about this morning is the Federal Drug Administration. JANAC is one of 4 bodies in the world that the FDA gives this right to. 2 of those bodies are in the United States. One is in Asia. And JANAC is the only one of those 4 that has done 10 of the 11 protocols, and they're on the 11th. And so what JANAC does, it makes sure it accredits BSJ, it accredits other testing agencies, so that when you have to do your HACCP test, and if you move your goods through a testing agency, a lab that's accredited under the FDA rules by JANAC, when you get to the United States, you don't have to worry. You're home safe, so you don't have that hassle. So JANAC is very important, but then there's the HSRA. The HSRA handles nuclear accreditation and testing. And all the dentists that you go to, they use something nuclear, and all of those will eventually be registered in the HSRA, another job-creating area. But there's a Bureau of Standards. There's the NRCA. There is a bunch of other testing, the anti-dumping arrangements, the arrangements we have for food testing, all under the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, to help businesses get prepared for export. You cannot just walk up in England and put on your spice and your sauce. You have to be properly tested to arrive there. Otherwise, you can't get through the port. You're going to waste your money. So the government, through the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, no, I need to say, the Andrew Holness administration, through the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, the Business Ministry, has all these testing arrangements, the quality standards to make business go well, and to make sure not just Export Max, but no, Grace, Wysinco, everybody else, Lasco, all of them are really, really good. But it's not just that. We're taking it on the road. The IDB and us have agreed to do a road show for MSMEs. The first one is going to be in July, I think July 21st, 27th in Mandeville. Then we're going to come back to Kingston. Then we're going to go to Montego Bay and Ocho Rios. Taking it on the show because why? Many MSMEs, I run NCB, many of them don't want to come into the bank. Some of them afraid to come in the bank. So we're taking the show to them. The IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, Jamaica's largest and really most magnanimous lending partner, has agreed to give us a grant of $250,000 US. The PS is here, PS Sunset Benny Templar. She's putting up some of her money because I have none. Me a minister. I have no control over money, so I have to go ask her. So she's putting up some of our money from the ministry. We have LASCO sponsoring it. We have, I know VM is looking. Sagicor is the other committed sponsor. And so we have business and we have others coming in. We want others to come in. So as we take the show to Manchester, to St. Elizabeth, to St. James and Trelawney, right across the country, not just Kingston, we're saying to MSME, whether you're in agriculture, whether you're in food processing, whether you're in processing other materials that we export or manufacturing, we're there to help you. And we're taking the road so they don't have to get scared to get into the bank. The Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Jamaica's business industry, Jamaica's business ministry is out there to make sure we create jobs and export a lot more, which you'll hear me speak about later on. But I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Hill. Very important updates there. We'll now welcome to the podium Minister of Labor and Social Security, brand new minted Minister of Labor and Social Security, the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr. Minister Charles.
Thank you, Minister Morgan. Acknowledgements to you, Minister Hill, our permanent secretaries, other officials here with us, members of the media, and of course the team that has put this together. Good morning to you all. On May 22nd, the Prime Minister, instructed that I take over the mantle at one of the most amazing ministries with a very important responsibility, and I'm blessed to have been given that opportunity. We have started since then, myself and my very capable permanent secretary, to key down or key in on some very important matters. And I want to give today just an update on some of the matters that we are addressing and provide an update on the outcome in particular of our recent visit to Geneva to attend the 111th session of the International Labour Conference, which is the perhaps most prominent global meeting on the issue of labor. So let me start with the conference. While in Geneva, we had the opportunity to meet with our colleagues across CARICOM. We had the opportunity to meet also with instrumental leaders, policymakers, and other stakeholder groups to discuss the important matters regarding labor and social security, to exchange knowledge, to to work together to develop strategies that will equip Jamaica and the region to compete on a global stage. We met with the director of the ILO, his assistant, and their team from the Office of the Cabinet of the Director General of the ILO. We met with the head of the ITC, International Trade Center. We met with the head of the United Nations Conference on Trade Development, UNCTAD. We met with the head of the IOM, the organization relating to migration, and other officials. I want to key down, though, on two other particular meetings. One, the meeting with the executive director of the ITC, the International Trade Center, Ms. Pamela Coke-Hamilton, who happens to be a Jamaican, in whom we are very proud. And at that meeting, we discussed areas of possible cooperation. The meeting was crucial, especially as Jamaica is seeking to chart its way forward in reshaping the labor market. And we found that there are enormous opportunities, particularly at the intersection, Minister Hill, of trade and labor. And we focused on the issues relating to the platform economy. Given the fact that the digital landscape holds immense potential for growth and development for our economy, which will become a reality for us shortly, with our tireless efforts towards digitizing and digitalizing the Jamaican society. Arising out of the meeting with the ITC, we were able to have them pledge to us support to Jamaica for research and further cooperation in respect of positioning our workforce and the future of work in Jamaica within the emerging global landscape. We will continue our technical team to work with the ITC team to define exactly the scope of that collaboration. As it relates to our meeting with UNCTAD, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, we met with the Secretary General, Rebecca Greenspan, who is a citizen of Costa Rica, and who expressed to us her understanding of the Latin American Caribbean region. And we capitalized on the opportunity to thank her and UNCTAD for the work that they have done in collaboration with Jamaica to improve trade facilitation, specifically UNCTAD's assistance with the development of our automated system for customs data, ASICUDA system as you know it, and the development of the single trade facilitation window through JAMPRO. We agreed that UNCTAD would work with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security to develop policies and strengthen institutions required to expand trade through improved productivity. Again, highlighting the intersection between trade and labor. UNCTAD has committed to assisting Jamaica in conducting a productivity assessment strategy to identify gaps or obstacles and ways for us to work together to navigate or overcome them. We also met, I won't get into all the details of all the meetings, but I think it's important for me to highlight that we met with the outgoing and incoming head of the International Organization for Migration, and we identified again areas for collaboration, specifically looking on migrant workers and the issues relating to health and security and preparation of those workers for the jobs that they will be taking up and occupying elsewhere. It would be remiss of me, as I move on to the next item, to not highlight and to recognize World Productivity Day 2023, which was yesterday. And it was observed under the theme, Paving Productivity Pathways for a Prosperous Nation. I thought that theme was fitting, not just globally, but for Jamaica. Productivity is an important and widely applicable concept that drives change across all dimensions of national growth. It has its roots and its implications for how we do business, our wages, the use of our resources, how we adapt to the future of work, how we build pathways for a sustainable environment, sustainable development, and in particular our competitiveness in the global environment in which we operate. So this year, for the World Productivity Day, which coincides also with the Jamaica Productivity Center's 20th anniversary celebrations, We had a very, I'd say, active event yesterday that was well supported in a hybrid format with persons physically and virtually engaging with the JPC. And we also highlighted our intention to continue to drive and to charge ahead with the public education on how productivity will impact sectors of our economy. What was highlighted by me there is that productivity, Jamaica, really should be a lifestyle. It should be something that you incorporate in your daily routine, your day-to-day business activity, and that is how we will have productivity really to resonate, as the global theme for this year said, paving productivity pathways for a prosperous nation. This marks the second consecutive year of our recovery in terms of productivity, as we noted that we saw an uptick in labor productivity in Jamaica, a relative uptick. Productivity goals were also defined yesterday, and as I said, we indicated that it is critical for us to not just see it as just points on a range, but rather to see it as a change of mindset that is needed across the country. At the Labour Ministry, Labour and Social Security Ministry, we are going to be focusing on, through the Jamaica Productivity Center, continuing our workshops, continuing to engage the various sectors, continuing to foster a supportive environment for innovation and competitiveness, and naturally we intend to be at the forefront of this effort. I want to move on to the 31st meeting of CARICOM's heads of social security organizations, which recently, this week actually, was approved. The submission was set before Cabinet, and I want to advise that this will be held in Jamaica between October 30th to November 3rd of this year. And it arises from a CARICOM agreement on social security, which we call CAS, which was signed in Georgetown, Guyana on March 1st, 1996 and enacted on April 1st, 1997. The implementation of this agreement, the CARICOM Agreement on Social Security, is monitored by the CARICOM Secretariat. And so participating countries to the agreement include, of course, Jamaica, Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Montserrat, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago. And so we will all meet, and through this forum, we will work together to identify gaps in performance and to determine capacity and training needs, and to discuss current and emerging issues that impact on social security and pensions for our people. Further, intense capacity building training will be conducted by the World Bank and the International Security Association. Permit me then, as we move quickly along, to move on to matters relating to the National Insurance Scheme, of which I'm sure we have interest. As soon as I said that, I saw a certain person perk up. So let me just address the matters, Mr. Hall. I do note the article that was published recently regarding pension fraud probe, and I just want to, for clarity, indicate that the Ministry of Labour and Social Security is not involved in any probe of fraud as it relates to the NIS. However, we're living in a world where we must be able to uplift and hold up transparency and accountability. And for that reason, we took very serious note of, I don't want to say allegations, of the comments that were made. And I think it is important to note that we have opened up and welcomed any examination that is required to ensure that Jamaica is clear as to where we are in terms of the two issues. One, the fact that there is no probe that the ministry is now involved in, and two, that any potential or possible matter of fraud or any activity which is untoward is something that we take seriously, and that we ourselves would be examining. That is why we actually have an annual internal audit, and we have had a scheduled routine audit taking place, which is in completion now, because the ministry, like other ministries, has a process of inherent accountability, which we at the Ministry of Labour and Social Security take very, very seriously. And so we are continuing and completing our internal audit of all programs with the effort to identify any weaknesses and, more importantly, to make sure that we can address and strengthen our programs, as our effort is always to improve. But all of that said, the most important note relating to the National Insurance Scheme is that we are very pleased to report that our NIS pensioners began receiving their increases on June 15th. It is very important for us to make sure that our pensioners across the country are aware that those who receive direct deposit would have received some of their increases, some of them maybe even 5 days before the 15th. And so the pension rate increases that are applicable to retirement pension benefits are applicable to retirement pension benefits, to the invalidity and the widows and widows' pensions, and they range from 23% increase up to 76% increase. And this is critical. The benefit for persons in receipt of full rate pensions has been increased by 23%, moving from $3,400 to $4,200 per week. The benefit for persons receiving three-quarter rate pensions has been increased by 37%, and this moves from $2,550 to $3,500 per week. And the benefit for pensioners receiving half-rate pensions will move at a whopping 76% increase, moving from $1,700 per week to $3,000 per week. And I think this is very important for us to get out to the country and to note. It is an important step forward in terms of the development of our Social Security and national development schemes. Pensioners who utilize the new pension order books should note that those books that are due in the August to December period will be paid the new rate, with the arrears reflected on the first pension order voucher in your new books. And the Ministry of Labour and Social Security also takes the opportunity to remind pensioners who are paid by the pension order books that they will receive those new rates in the new pension order books, which are due by the beginning of July. The first pension order voucher in the new book will reflect the arrears as well as the month's payment at the new rate. Finally, we're going to move on to the farm work program. I want to indicate that the ministry is taking steps to improve the Overseas Employment Farm Work Program, and to this end, the role of the Canadian Program Management Committee, which currently has oversight responsibility for the operation of the program to ensure that the liaison services is performed optimally, has been refocused. We have also engaged the committee and other members of the ministry to define steps going forward so we have a more robust and effective approach. Letters are being prepared to send to all farm workers to assure them of our continued support, and we will be engaging not just farm workers, but we have started the process by having meetings with our liaison officers in Canada, and we will be engaging also the farmers and the employers. So all stakeholders related to the Overseas Employment Farm Work Program will be engaged to make sure that we have a full understanding of the steps to be taken to improve and to optimize the program. We've also put in place, or it was put in place before, the provision of a toll-free line, which will be supported now by additional mechanisms for farmers, farm workers to contact us without feeling any concern of victimization, and being able to express themselves through email address and WhatsApp number and whatever different ways we have available for them to directly contact us to express their concerns discreetly. And so that information will be sent out to all farm workers shortly. And I want to assure you as I close that the Ministry of Labour and Social Security remains steadfast in our strategic focus to establish service excellence and committed leadership in customer service delivery. And so one of the primary issues for us that we will be focusing on will be the transformation of how we deliver service at the ministry at all levels, whether it is to pensioners, to path beneficiaries, to farm workers, to any citizen that interacts with us at any level. We intend to utilize innovation. We intend to work across ministries as directed by our Prime Minister, and to make sure that we identify the needs of those who we serve, particularly the most vulnerable in this country, who we want them to understand that they should be dignified and they are valued, and we are going to ensure they know that in how they are treated and in the mechanisms we use to deliver service to them. We will continue to work tirelessly to upgrade our systems and to become more efficient in how we deliver our services. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ministers. Really appreciate both of you taking the time this morning to attend upon the post-cabinet press briefing. We will now open the floor for questions from members of the media. Do we have a first question, Naomi? And
Morning.
our OPM correspondent, Arthur Hall.
That is not even for the minister. Morning, Minister Charles. I have a couple of questions for you, easy ones, because I know you're new. Minister, I'm Arthur Hall from the Jamaica Observer. I noticed you've said that there's no instance of fraud involving the NIS at the ministry. Can you say to us this morning if the numbers from the Postmaster General payment and what the vouchers were sent out, if they're equal? Have you determined that?
All right, so that's a most important question, and it is important because it exposes exactly what the confusion is for the reader. There are two issues. One is the matter of whether the Ministry of Labour and Social Security is now engaged in a fraud probe as it has been defined. Two, and very distinct, is whether there is any incident of fraud. Two separate matters. We have dealt with number one, and we can categorically state, because we are the relevant person that is an issue in that statement. So we can say that we are not engaged in a fraud probe as has been published. That is false. It's not taking place right now. For number two, which is if there is an incident of fraud, I don't think anybody can categorically state that there is or is not unless there is an adequate investigation that would take place to assess that. So what we have said at the ministry is we can tell you that we are not engaged in a fraud probe. And two, we can tell you that we have robust internal mechanisms that are currently being engaged to make sure that if there is incident, we could identify it. If there are weaknesses, we identify it and that we address it. Further to that, we even said, listen, If it is that there is a belief that there is an incident or incidents of fraud, we are the ones that want to identify it. So we exposed ourselves and said to external, for external support to identify that. So I hope the two issues are clear. Thank you.
Minister, just not related, still with your ministry. In your brief, less than 1 month in the ministry, have you visited your offices in ERA Circle offices? And what departments are based there? And are there issues in that office that you have been made aware of?
I have visited the Hero Circle office, primarily the departments related to our social security side are housed there. What is the last part of your question? If there are issues at the building, it's difficult for me to answer. I'm not. Are you talking about physical issues?
Something like that would have to investigate, because I mean it's a very wide question. Naomi, Minister.
Yes.
I'm not sure the information minister with responsibility for information has caught my question. My question is, have you been made aware of any safety issues in that building at ERA Circle? Have your technical people told you of any safety issues there?
Safety issues. I cannot recall at this time being made aware of any safety issues relating to the building.
PS, have you, I mean the PS is here, have you been made aware of such? Naomi?
I am not aware, I've not been made aware by our building officers of safety issues. As a matter of fact, we recently completed refurbishing work on the basement and the ground floor, and those areas were outfitted with emergency equipment such as fire extinguishers and fire suppression systems. So I'm not aware, Mr. Hall. Maybe if you're aware of something, you can let us know. We're always open to improvement.
Thank you very much. We have another question, Naomi.
Good morning, everyone. Truston Grizzle here from Nationwide. So, Minister Charles, between 2018 and 2021, the figures that we saw as it relates to children who are involved in child labor in Jamaica was roughly 38,000. Do you have an update on that number, and what steps are you taking, by you, I mean on behalf of the ministry and the ministry overall, what steps are you taking to ensure that child labor in Jamaica is reduced and ultimately something that is no longer an issue in Jamaica?
So, no, I don't have a formal update on the figures, but I do know that the ministry continues to watch, and anecdotally we know that there has been, I don't want to say marginal, but a positive outlook and perhaps a decline in terms of the figures relating to child labor. The ministry continues to work with, within the region and with also international organizations to ensure that our legislative framework and policies are geared towards ensuring that we advance the awareness that is necessary around child labor. For instance, the difference between child labor and child work. So if you have a child at your home, is it that you can't tell them to spread their bed? Things like that, which are questions that I had. And to ensure that we ratify the necessary international conventions, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1991, the conventions relating to minimum age for admission to employment, and other framework that will allow for us to have the standard across government and within the private sector to make sure that we are doing what is necessary to protect our children. we also lead out. Jamaica's effort in terms of combating child labor at the policy level has been recognized regionally as being one of the more advanced. And we have community-based interventions across the country. We also work across agencies to make sure that there is an exchange of information and that we provide the necessary technical support and expertise to make the issue of child labor continue to be a prominent one in terms of how we protect our children at the various institutions, which you know, from education to national security. Also, recently, we were a part of what we had, I think it was Let's Accelerate. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe was it Let's Accelerate? It's a regional effort to identify the issue of child labor as a prominent one that needs to continue to be an issue for all governments. So Jamaica is taking steps. We continue to take steps. Of course, this is something which we need more empirical data on. And so it's just this morning that I had discussed the need for us to see how we can get more updated statistical information around child labor, which doesn't rest with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, but we will be speaking to the relevant authorities to ensure that we can get that information.
And finally, you perhaps wouldn't have had a lot of time to go through the entire document, but as it relates to the green paper that was tabled in the Parliament yesterday, right? What are your initial thoughts on the document overall? How do you think this will help in ministers being held accountable? And I guess Minister Hill, you can also respond in your capacity as a minister.
And you're speaking about the job description?
Right, the job description for ministers, well, for MPs, that's for you, and the ministry paper for Minister Hill. And Minister Morgan as well.
They've heard my voice so much.
Well, I'm very pleased that that paper was laid in Parliament yesterday. We've gone through it, as the Prime Minister said, very extensively and sometimes intensively through clauses and phrases in the Cabinet, as you would expect. We're setting a template for a long time for how people will perform, and that includes us. People tend to be subjective on it, but in a room of 15, 16 people, you're going to have a lot of opinions on it, and we spent a lot of time. The Prime Minister was very careful. It's not just yesterday or Monday when we did it. We've been looking at it. And so we're at a place now where we're saying to the nation, in Parliament, which is where we must go, this is what we're looking at to hold ministers accountable. Now, remember, as Minister Morgan said, I heard him on the radio saying it, maybe yesterday, that there are other documents. There's a code of conduct for ministers that was already in vogue and tabled that might be looked at and adjusted, but it's there. So we're looking, people, I come from the private sector, and I have had to, every quarter I had to go and meet the press and talk about the results of the bank. I ran banks here and overseas. So I'm used to being accountable. I'm not going to talk about the pay because then you're going to say I'm out of line because I come from another place. But really, accountability is not wrong. Accountability is right. Accountability is what the Andrew Holness administration has been saying. It's easy, let me tell you, anybody can say anything they want about you. It's easy to say a politician or a big business tycoon or a preacher is corrupt. It's not easy to prove it. So we must get to the place in Jamaica where we stop just saying and tweeting and Instagramming and wherever else you want to use to say politicians are crooked. It's time for you, especially as a young journalist like you, to say, fine, you just said that. You show me where they have been. Give me the evidence. And if there's evidence, you call out the politician. He's a public, in the job description, you hear the Prime Minister said in there, hey, you will not see your family. My words. It's not like that, but sort of like that, you know? you will have to work hard. You will be under stress. So when they call us to be corrupt, ask them for the evidence.
So our Prime Minister is taking steps to modernize the framework of governance in Jamaica. This is a part of the thrust towards developing our country and moving Jamaica into an era where the tenets of accountability and transparency are norm. The job description, from my perspective, is not an easy one to digest because this job is not one that adequately fits into any square or any circle. So it is a difficult task for the Prime Minister, for the government to set down on paper, but it is one which we accept as important and a positive step in our governance structure. It will assist, I think, in three ways. Defining the parameters of duties, skills, abilities, elements that are required for this job will help somebody who's looking on to know if they want to get into it. It will help the person who is involved in the job to know exactly in a written way what they are being held accountable for. And I think thirdly and most importantly, for the citizens that we serve, it will allow them to have a better understanding of what the parameters of this awesome responsibility is, and perhaps I'm hoping it would allow for us to focus our attention on those relevant matters within the job description. I don't know if that will happen because I can tell you as a not just a minister but as a member of parliament, some of the things that I am called to do would never be written in a job description. Okay? There is no job description that will say, answer your phone at 5 a.m. because Duffus is calling. But you're going to do it because it is a part of that job. So this I see as an effort for us to chronicle as best as possible as part of our governance structure what we do, but it will not sufficiently, in my view, at least now, it won't sufficiently put down on paper all that we are called to do.
Thank you very much.
Just one more question. So, Minister Hill, just before we close, the road shows, what is it aim to achieve with these MEs when you go on the road? What do you aim to achieve?
What we aim to achieve is we have 20 agencies in the ministry. As I told you about the quality ones, the BSJ, the JANAC and the rest of them. We have JBDC, we have Exim Bank. We have a bunch of others that are there to assist MSMEs. And frankly, Arthur, you've been in this business a long time. I know you didn't know as much as what JANAC does, just JANAC, okay? You might know 15 of them, okay? But we still have another 5. So we're taking them on the road. All will be with us to say, look, this is what we do for you. Some of them we lend out money. For instance, in the issue of money, we have something called the Productive Incentive Relief Program, the PIR program. And you probably don't know this. For manufacturers, people are in the manufacturing business, and that's beverage, chemical, cleaning, substances, construction, and building. I want the PS to expand this, work with the other ministries to expand to mining. So we give PIR to mining, hospitality, apprenticeship training, and healthcare. But that's to come. What we do give now to manufacturers is we gave them relief totaling $109 million in 2021, 2022. And 2020, 2021, 80 million. Why am I telling you that? Because you remember now, we come out of the pandemic better than we were before. That's why. That's one of the reasons. The Productive Incentive Relief Program gave millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, to manufacturers to keep them going, and that's part of what MSME will get as we go on the road. So they will get exposure, information, and some benefits as the PS carries her checkbook with her in her handbag.
Good morning, Mr. Morgan. Can you say when Parliament... Good morning, I'm Tanisha Mundle from the Gleaner.
Hi, Tanisha, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you say when will the government finalize the reappointment of Mr. Deanroy Bernard?
That's a matter for the Public Services Commission. I don't think it's a matter for the cabinet. So that I could not respond to that. I don't know.
Okay. Can you provide me with an update on the selection of the contractor for the new Parliament building construction?
Well, that process is taking place. I'm sure there will be an announcement very soon. The UDC is currently having discussions, but there will be a public update on it very soon. So just things are moving apace.
Okay, final question. Senate President Mr. Finson
Yes.
on Friday disclosed that he received a report of the investigation from the Integrity Commission on the conflict of interest, corruption, and irregularities surrounding the First Rock Capital Holding Limited. Can you say if this isn't a breach of the Integrity Commission Act to have disclosed the report before it was tabled? To need the report, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have not seen the report. I have not disclosed it. I suspect that's a question properly posed to the Speaker, who would have received the report as President or Speaker of the House. So no members of, I don't know of any member of Parliament. And you would remember on the day when the Speaker spoke, she didn't even tell us which report it was.
She named the report.
No, when we were in Parliament, she said they received a report. There was no detail that was given to parliamentarians on that day as to which report it was. So I would not be able to speak on behalf of the Senate President. Remember, he is the head of the upper house, and I sit in the lower house. Thank you very much, Ms. Mundle. I think that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a very good post-cabinet press briefing this morning. I want to thank Senator Hill, as well as Minister Charles Jr., as well as Permanent Secretaries Sansia Bennett Templar and Colette Roberts Risden. Thank you very much. Also the team from Jamaica Information Service, members of the media. And you, our valued viewers and listeners online and on air. Until next Wednesday at 8 a.m., where we have another post-cabinet press briefing, I ask that you have a very safe and productive rest of the day. Thank you.